Tyler had just moved to a new town and joined the local high school. His family had relocated for his father's job, and Tyler wasn't too happy about it. He had been settled in his old school, with friends he had known since childhood, and now he was the new kid in a place where everything felt strange. The hardest part, for him, was joining the school's football team. Tyler wasn't a big talker, and though he had always enjoyed sports, football was new to him. He wasn't sure if he'd fit in. When he walked into the locker room on his first day, everyone seemed to already know each other. The team was already laughing and joking around, but Tyler stood by himself, unsure of where to go. He had been placed on the junior varsity team, but it didn't matter much to him. He didn't want attention, just a quiet place to fit in. But that's not how things turned out. As soon as he stepped in, Kyle, one of the team's more outspoken players, took notice. Kyle was a big guy, tall, broad-shouldered, with a loud voice that could command any room. He looked at Tyler with a smirk, clearly sizing him up. Tyler had seen this kind of thing before. New kids always got the attention, and it wasn't usually a warm welcome. Tyler wasn't afraid, though. He just didn't know how to make it stop. For the next few days, Kyle and his friends started making fun of him. They teased Tyler about his quiet nature, about the way he walked and talked. Tyler would just shrug it off, pretending it didn't bother him. He didn't care about the jokes. But Kyle didn't stop. Every day, there was something new. One time, Kyle and a few of his friends had hidden Tyler's gym bag. They knew he wouldn't make a fuss, so they found it easy to mess with him. Tyler walked into the locker room, hoping to get changed quickly, only to find his bag nowhere to be found. Looking for something, newbie? Kyle's voice echoed through the room. Tyler sighed, not wanting to cause a scene. He knew exactly where Kyle had hidden the bag, under the benches in the corner. It was always the same game, but Tyler just didn't want to play. He went over to get his bag, and Kyle and his friends laughed. "Nice moves, Tyler. You're going to need more than that to fit in around here," Kyle mocked. Tyler didn't respond. He wasn't interested in fighting or getting into trouble. He had learned a long time ago that the best way to deal with bullies was to stay calm and ignore them. It was something his Jiu-Jitsu coach had taught him years ago. Tyler was a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu, a skill he had worked hard for, but it wasn't something he liked to talk about. It wasn't that he was ashamed, it was just that most people didn't understand martial arts. They thought it was all about fighting and violence, and Tyler didn't want anyone to think he was some kind of show-off or troublemaker. In his old school, no one had ever picked on him. He was well liked, and his jiu-jitsu skills were a part of who he was. But now, in this new place, it felt like they could only see him as the new kid, someone different, someone they could mess with. He was starting to get frustrated, but he kept it to himself. During football practice, things didn't get any better. Tyler tried his best to keep up, but he wasn't used to the fast pace of the game. The other players were quicker, stronger, and more experienced. Tyler was still learning the plays and figuring out where he needed to be. He felt awkward running drills and getting into position. Kyle and his friends took notice. "Hey, look at this guy," Kyle yelled during one of the drills. "Is he even trying?" Tyler focused on the ball, trying to ignore the comments. But it was hard. Kyle wasn't done. He made sure to keep throwing jabs at Tyler, laughing at his every move. Tyler had been used to tough training in Jiu-Jitsu, but this was different. The pressure of being the new kid, constantly being judged, was starting to wear on him. At lunch the next day, Tyler sat alone at a table, eating his sandwich. He watched the other players sit together, laughing and joking like they had known each other for years. Tyler felt like an outsider. He didn't mind being by himself, but a part of him wanted to feel like he belonged. The last thing he needed was to be made fun of for eating alone. Kyle, of course, noticed Tyler sitting by himself. He walked over with a couple of his friends, all smirking. "Hey, Tyler," Kyle said, pulling up a chair. "You're really going to sit here all by yourself? You don't look like much of a team player." Tyler didn't look up. He didn't want to engage, but Kyle wasn't backing down. He kicked Tyler's foot under the table, laughing. "Come on, don't act like you're too good for us." Tyler's mind raced. He didn't want to cause trouble, but the teasing was getting harder to ignore. He thought about how he'd been trained to handle situations like this, how to stay calm, how to keep his cool. Jiu-Jitsu was all about self-control, and he wasn't going to let Kyle or anyone else get under his skin. Tyler's hand tightened around the sandwich in his hand, but he forced himself to relax. He finished eating slowly, refusing to let Kyle's words get to him. He knew the best way to deal with this was to keep his head down and let the teasing die down. But deep inside, Tyler was starting to feel something stir. He had never been one to just let things go on forever. He knew there would come a time when he couldn't stay quiet anymore. But when would that time be? The day ended with practice, and Tyler felt the tension building inside him. He was ready to leave and get away from the constant teasing. But something in him told him that the bullies weren't going to stop. Kyle and his friends had already made it clear that they saw Tyler as an easy target. Tyler wasn't sure how long he could keep his composure. At the end of the day, he walked home in silence, his mind racing. What would happen the next day? Would the bullying continue? Would he be able to handle it the same way, or would he finally stand up for himself? One thing was for sure, Tyler wasn't going to let anyone push him around forever. But for now, he would keep his secret close. They didn't know who he really was. And they had no idea what he was capable of. The days following Tyler's first practice weren't much better. In fact, they seemed to get worse. Kyle and his friends continued to pick on him at every opportunity, making sure to point out his mistakes during football drills and laughing behind his back. Tyler's patience was wearing thin, but he kept telling himself that the best way to handle it was to ignore them, not let their words get under his skin. But it wasn't easy. Every time Tyler made a mistake during practice, Kyle was there to point it out, often with a loud, mocking voice that everyone could hear. One day, during a simple drill where the players were supposed to run to a specific spot on the field, Tyler got confused about the direction. It was a small mistake, but it made him feel embarrassed. "Come on, man, can you even follow basic directions?" Kyle shouted, drawing the attention of the whole team. "Are you lost, or just stupid?" The laughter that followed stung, but Tyler didn't respond. He just kept his head down, focusing on the drill. It wasn't like he didn't care about the team or didn't want to be good at football. He did. He was just overwhelmed. Football was new to him, and he was trying to keep up with a bunch of players who had been practicing for years. But Kyle's insults made it harder to focus. That afternoon, Tyler couldn't shake the feeling that the bullying was escalating. They weren't just mocking his football skills anymore, they were taking jabs at his appearance, his clothes, his way of talking. It seemed like Kyle was trying to find anything to make Tyler feel like he didn't belong. Tyler walked into the locker room after practice, already dreading what he might face next. Kyle and his group of friends were there, huddled in the corner, whispering and laughing. Tyler was about to grab his things when Kyle's voice cut through the noise. "Hey, Tyler," Kyle called, a smirk on his face. "Do you always dress like that? I mean, do you even know what real football players wear?" Tyler glanced down at his clothes. He didn't think they were anything special, just a regular hoodie and sweatpants. But to Kyle, it seemed like an opportunity to attack. "You're not even trying to fit in, are you? You just want to be the odd one out, huh?" Kyle continued, stepping closer to Tyler. Tyler took a deep breath, trying not to let the comments get to him. He knew that responding would only make things worse. But as Kyle kept poking fun at him, Tyler could feel his patience starting to snap. He wanted to defend himself, but instead, he just grabbed his bag and walked out without saying a word. The next day at school, things didn't get any better. At lunch, Kyle and his friends spotted Tyler sitting alone again. This time, they weren't just making fun of him for being quiet, they were deliberately trying to make him uncomfortable. As Tyler was eating his sandwich, Kyle walked up to him with a smirk. "Wow, look at you, still eating alone," Kyle said, shaking his head. "Maybe it's because you're a loner. Or maybe it's just because no one can stand being around you." Tyler didn't even look up. He knew if he did, it would only encourage them. So, he kept his eyes on his food, hoping they would leave him alone. Kyle wasn't done, though. He grabbed Tyler's sandwich out of his hand, holding it just out of reach. "What's the matter, Tyler? Can't handle a little fun? You're not even trying to fit in, huh?" Tyler finally looked up, meeting Kyle's eyes. There was no anger in his expression, just calm. "Give it back," he said softly. Kyle's grin widened. "Make me." Tyler didn't react immediately. He sat there for a moment, gathering his thoughts. He had been trained in martial arts for years, but he didn't believe in violence. Jiu-Jitsu wasn't about attacking, it was about control, about knowing when to act and when not to. But right now, Kyle's words and actions were testing his patience in a way he hadn't experienced before. With a quiet sigh, Tyler stood up. He didn't need to raise his voice. He simply moved with purpose. In one swift motion, he grabbed Kyle's arm and twisted it behind his back, just enough to make him stop resisting. Kyle tried to pull away, but Tyler's grip was firm, yet controlled. He didn't hurt Kyle, he didn't need to. "Let go of me," Kyle shouted, but there was no real fight in his voice now. Tyler just held him there, not putting any more pressure than necessary to keep him in place. "You're not the only one who knows how to be tough, Kyle," Tyler said calmly. "But this is where it ends. You don't get to treat people like this." For a few moments, the entire cafeteria was silent, watching in shock. Tyler didn't back down, but neither did he escalate the situation. He kept his cool, proving that he didn't need to play Kyle's games. Finally, Tyler released Kyle and took a step back. Kyle rubbed his arm, still looking stunned, and walked away without another word. Tyler didn't care what Kyle thought. He had made his point. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Tyler didn't hang around the football team after that. He didn't need to. He had made it clear that he wouldn't let the bullying continue. The next few days were quieter. Tyler noticed that the jokes and taunts had stopped, but he also noticed something else: people were looking at him differently. Tyler wasn't sure if it was respect or fear, but it didn't matter to him. He wasn't in this for popularity. He just wanted to finish the season, learn about football, and get through the year. But deep down, he knew that he wasn't going to let anyone mess with him anymore. And that was a feeling he hadn't had in a long time. Days went by, and Tyler hoped that everything would settle down. After the incident in the cafeteria, where he had calmly stood his ground against Kyle, there was a noticeable shift. The mocking and taunting had slowed down, but that didn't mean things were back to normal. Tyler could still feel the tension hanging in the air every time he walked into the locker room or passed Kyle in the hallways. The bullies hadn't forgotten, and neither had Tyler. He was doing his best to focus on football. He practiced hard, determined to improve and prove to himself that he wasn't just the new kid on the block. He wanted to be good at the game, to show that he could learn and contribute, but every time he made a mistake, he felt the weight of judgment. He knew the other players were watching him closely, especially Kyle and his friends. They were waiting for him to slip up, to mess up again so they could pounce. But Tyler wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. He kept his head down, worked hard, and did everything he could to stay out of the way of the bullies. He focused on learning the plays, improving his technique, and keeping his cool under pressure. It wasn't easy, especially with Kyle's occasional snide comments from the sidelines during drills, but Tyler was determined to stick it out. One afternoon during practice, something unexpected happened. Tyler was running a basic route, trying to keep up with the rest of the team. His legs were starting to feel heavy, and the pressure of the constant tension was weighing on him. As he reached the spot where he was supposed to cut, he misjudged his speed and stumbled. He quickly regained his balance, but not before a few players saw the mistake. Kyle was quick to pounce. "Nice one, Tyler. Way to look like you've never played football before," Kyle shouted, drawing laughter from the rest of the team. Tyler gritted his teeth, fighting the urge to retaliate. He could feel the eyes of the whole team on him, waiting for him to explode or at least give them a reaction. But Tyler wasn't going to let them win. He didn't give Kyle the satisfaction of a response. Instead, he just focused on his next move, determined to make up for the mistake. But Kyle wasn't done. He continued to make jabs throughout the practice, every time Tyler missed a pass or failed to catch the ball properly. Tyler kept his cool, forcing himself to ignore the laughter and the taunts. But inside, the frustration was building. He was trying so hard, and yet it didn't seem to matter to the other players. They saw him as an outsider, someone they could pick on because he wasn't part of their world, not yet. By the end of practice, Tyler was exhausted not just physically, but mentally too. He had worked hard, but the constant tension and the judgment from the other players were starting to take their toll. He wanted to be part of the team, to feel like he belonged, but every day felt like an uphill battle. When Tyler walked into the locker room after practice, he found that the usual group of bullies was already there, gathered by the benches, talking loudly. As Tyler moved to get changed, Kyle spotted him from across the room. "Hey, Tyler," Kyle called out, his voice dripping with mockery. "What happened out there? Did your legs get too tired, or did your brain stop working? Maybe you should try another sport, huh?" Tyler's hand tightened around the edge of his locker door. He felt the familiar anger bubbling up inside him, but he pushed it down. He couldn't let Kyle get to him. Not now. He wasn't going to let his emotions control him. Kyle walked over, continuing to taunt him. "You know, I've been thinking. Maybe we should get you a cheerleading outfit. It'd be a better fit for you than football." Tyler took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. His eyes met Kyle's, and for a moment, there was a brief silence. It wasn't that Tyler was afraid he wasn't. It was just that he knew what could happen if he let this go any further. He knew the temptation to fight back was strong, but he also knew that violence wasn't the answer. It wasn't the way he had been taught to handle conflict. He finally spoke, his voice steady but firm. "You're wrong about me, Kyle. You don't know me. I'm not here to play games. I'm here to learn, to improve, and I'm not going anywhere." Kyle stared at him for a moment, as if trying to figure out what Tyler meant. But Tyler didn't wait for an answer. He turned away and began changing into his street clothes, his movements calm and controlled. The tension in the room hung heavy, but Tyler refused to let it get to him. As he finished changing, Kyle made one last comment, though it was quieter than before. "You're just trying to act tough, aren't you? You think you're some kind of hero, but you're nothing. You'll never fit in." Tyler didn't answer. He didn't need to. He had made his point. He didn't have to prove anything to anyone, especially not to someone like Kyle. When Tyler left the locker room that day, he felt a sense of calm that he hadn't experienced in a long time. It wasn't because the bullying had stopped, it hadn't. But Tyler had learned something important about himself. He didn't need to fight to prove his worth. He didn't need to be part of the team's in crowd to feel good about himself. The next few days were quieter. The bullying had subsided a little, though Tyler could still feel the tension in the air. Kyle and his friends didn't stop completely, but Tyler knew that their insults were becoming less and less effective. They were beginning to realize that Tyler wasn't going to react the way they expected. As Tyler kept practicing, he started to feel a bit more confident. The players on the team who had once ignored him now started to notice his dedication. Even though he wasn't the best football player yet, they saw that he was willing to work hard. Some of them began to respect his effort, if not his skill. And while Kyle and the others still made their jokes, they started to back off a little. Tyler knew that the real challenge was still ahead. He wasn't out of the woods yet, but he was beginning to feel like he was on the right path. He wasn't just learning football, he was learning about himself, about the importance of staying calm, staying true to who he was, and not letting anyone's opinion define him. And no matter what happened next, Tyler was ready to face it head on. The days following the locker room encounter were quieter than Tyler expected. Kyle and his friends still exchanged looks and muttered jabs, but their teasing wasn't as frequent. There was a noticeable shift. Tyler couldn't pinpoint the exact moment it happened, but it seemed that his calm response to Kyle's taunts had changed things. Maybe Kyle and his friends were starting to realize that Tyler wasn't someone they could easily provoke. On the field, things were still difficult for Tyler, but he was making progress. Football wasn't easy for him. He had spent years training in Jiu-Jitsu, where everything was about balance, control, and fluidity. But football was different. The speed, the intensity, the constant movement, it was a challenge. Every practice was a learning experience. Tyler had to push himself to keep up with the other players, but he did it quietly, without complaining. His training in Jiu-Jitsu had taught him that true strength didn't come from bragging or showing off, it came from within. It was about mastering yourself, your emotions, and your reactions. Over time, a few of the other players started to notice Tyler's dedication. He might not have been the star of the team, but he was always there, working hard and showing up to every practice. And when they saw him pushing through the tough days without complaining, they started to respect him. They could see that he was committed, that he wasn't just there because he wanted to be part of the crowd. He was there because he wanted to be better, not only at football but at being himself. One afternoon, during a particularly tough practice, Tyler's perseverance was put to the test. The team was running a difficult play that required precise timing and speed. Tyler had been struggling with his roots, and though he had improved, he still felt like he was falling behind. As the play began, Tyler pushed himself harder than he ever had before, running faster, focusing more intently on the ball, and trying to match the other player's speed. He reached for the pass, but his hand missed it by just an inch. "Come on, Tyler!" Kyle yelled from the sideline. "You've got to be quicker than that." The words stung, but Tyler didn't let them show. He could feel the frustration building inside him, but he pushed it away. He focused on what his coach had always told him: "You're not competing against anyone else. You're competing against yourself." Instead of getting angry or defensive, Tyler took a deep breath and started again. He knew he couldn't afford to let one mistake derail his entire practice. He lined up again, focused, and this time, he caught the ball. He ran the route perfectly, the way he had practiced 1,000 times in his head. And when he reached the end of the line, he didn't look for applause or praise. He just ran back to his position, ready to try again. It didn't take long for other players to notice. A few of them gave Tyler a nod of approval, and even though Kyle didn't say anything, Tyler could see the hint of respect in his eyes. The next time Tyler made a mistake, it wasn't followed by taunts or jokes. Instead, the coach simply called him over and offered some advice on how to improve. Over the next few weeks, the team started to change. Tyler was still the new kid, and football was still tough, but the dynamics on the team were shifting. Some of the players who had once ignored him were starting to include him in conversations. They asked him about his experience, not just with football, but with sports in general. Tyler was hesitant to talk about Jiu-Jitsu at first. He didn't want anyone to think he was trying to show off or act like he was better than them. But eventually, he opened up a little, sharing how Jiu-Jitsu had taught him discipline, focus, and the importance of never giving up. One afternoon, as the team was wrapping up practice, the coach called everyone over to the sidelines. He had a big smile on his face, and Tyler could tell that something important was coming. "All right, guys," the coach began, "I've been watching all of you work hard, but I want to give special recognition to someone who has really stepped up these past few weeks. Tyler, I've seen you push yourself harder than anyone, and you've shown true dedication to the team." Tyler's heart skipped a beat. He wasn't used to getting praise, especially not in front of the whole team. He felt a little embarrassed, but also proud. This wasn't just about football for him. It was about proving to himself that he could overcome the challenges, that he could belong. The coach went on, "Tyler has shown that no matter what, he's willing to put in the work. That's what we need from every player here. Hard work, focus, and a willingness to improve." Tyler felt a small sense of accomplishment, but he knew it wasn't just about the coach's praise. It was about the respect he had earned from his teammates. It was about them seeing him not as the new kid anymore, but as someone who belonged. Kyle didn't say anything during the coach's speech, but when practice was over, he approached Tyler. There was a slight change in his demeanor. He wasn't mocking Tyler anymore. Instead, he held out his hand. "Hey, good work today," Kyle said, his tone neutral but sincere. "I didn't think you had it in you, but you're pushing yourself harder than anyone. Keep it up." Tyler shook Kyle's hand, surprised by the gesture. He didn't say anything, but in that moment, he knew that the dynamic had changed. Kyle still had his pride, but the respect was there now. It wasn't just about Tyler fitting in. It was about him earning his place on the team. As Tyler walked home that day, he felt lighter than he had in weeks. He wasn't the star of the team, and he wasn't the most skilled player. But he had proven something to himself and to everyone else. He had worked through the bullying, through the taunts and the doubts, and he had come out on the other side stronger. Tyler wasn't looking for a victory. He didn't want to prove anyone wrong. What he had gained was something deeper: confidence in himself and his ability to persevere, no matter what others thought. And that was a victory in its own right. When he got home that evening, Tyler smiled to himself. He wasn't just a new kid on a football team anymore. He was a part of something. He had earned his place. As the weeks passed, Tyler began to feel more comfortable on the football team. The constant teasing and jabs had faded away, replaced by a growing sense of respect from his teammates. Kyle, who had once been the leader of the Bullies, had stopped making his usual comments, and although he didn't become Tyler's best friend, there was a new understanding between them. It wasn't friendship, but it was something more important: mutual respect. Tyler still wasn't the best player on the team, but he had earned something that was even more valuable: his teammates' respect. Every practice, every game, he gave his best. He didn't need to be the star, he just needed to prove that he was willing to put in the work, no matter how difficult it got. And that was exactly what he did. One day, during an intense practice session, the coach decided to run a full scrimmage. Tyler was nervous. He had never played in a full game before, and he knew it was his chance to show his progress. The stakes were higher now. His teammates were watching him closely, and he knew that they expected him to perform. But even with the pressure mounting, Tyler kept his focus. As the game started, Tyler was given a chance to run a route he had been practicing for weeks. He had always struggled with it, and the thought of messing up in front of everyone made his stomach twist. But he took a deep breath, just like he had been taught in Jiu-Jitsu. Control. Focus. Letting go of fear. Tyler lined up, his heart beating steadily in his chest. The quarterback called for the play, and Tyler took off. His feet moved with precision, each step bringing him closer to his goal. He could feel his body working in perfect rhythm with the play, every motion fluid and instinctual. The ball was thrown. For a moment, it felt like time slowed down. Tyler reached out, his fingers grazing the ball, and then he caught it. It was a perfect catch. The kind of catch that would make any receiver proud. Tyler felt a rush of exhilaration as he held the ball securely in his hands and sprinted toward the end zone. The cheers from his teammates echoed in his ears, and for a moment, everything felt perfect. When he crossed the line, the team erupted into applause. Tyler's teammates were shouting his name, clapping him on the back, and even Kyle, who had once been one of his biggest critics, gave him a thumbs up. The respect was no longer just something Tyler felt, it was something he had earned. The coach blew his whistle, signaling the end of practice. As the team huddled together, the coach looked at Tyler with a smile. "Great job, Tyler. That was the best play I've seen you make all season. You've come a long way since you first joined us." Tyler felt a wave of pride wash over him. This was what he had been working for: the recognition, the respect, and the feeling that he truly belonged. He wasn't the best player on the field, but that didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that he had earned his place through hard work and determination. After practice, Tyler walked off the field with a new sense of confidence. He wasn't the quiet new kid anymore. He was a member of the team, someone who had proven his worth. The bullying had stopped long ago, but Tyler knew that the real victory wasn't just about overcoming the bullies. It was about proving to himself that he could handle the pressure, the challenges, and the doubts. The next few days were quieter. Tyler continued to focus on improving, but now, instead of being the target of jokes, he was part of the group. His teammates began to turn to him for advice, asking about his experience with discipline and focus. They didn't always understand Jiu-Jitsu, but they respected the way Tyler applied those principles to his life. He wasn't just a football player, he was someone who knew how to stay calm under pressure, how to handle failure without letting it define him. One afternoon, as the team was preparing for an important game, the coach gathered everyone together in the locker room. He looked around at all the players, his eyes resting on each of them, before finally turning to Tyler. "Tyler," the coach began, "I just want to take a moment to recognize how far you've come. When you first joined this team, you could barely keep up with the drills. But now, you're out there leading by example. You've shown us all what it means to be dedicated and resilient. Keep it up." Tyler felt his face flush with pride. He had never expected such recognition, but now, it felt deserved. He wasn't looking for a trophy or a special award, he just wanted to know that the work he had put in mattered. And hearing his coach's words confirmed that it had. As the game approached, Tyler found himself more focused than ever. The team was counting on him, not because he was the most talented, but because they knew he would give everything he had. The game was tough, with both teams fighting for every point, but Tyler remained calm. His training in Jiu-Jitsu had taught him the importance of staying grounded, and it helped him keep his nerves steady during the most intense moments. When the game finally ended, Tyler didn't care about the score. What mattered was that he had given it his all. He had contributed to the team, not just as a player, but as someone who had learned to lead with quiet strength. That night, as Tyler walked home, he reflected on how much had changed. He had gone from being the quiet new kid, unsure of his place, to someone who had found his own voice. He had earned respect not by trying to fit in or show off, but by staying true to himself. He had learned that it wasn't about being the best, it was about being consistent, showing up, and always striving to improve. And as he walked through the quiet streets, Tyler couldn't help but smile. He wasn't just part of the team anymore. He was a part of something bigger, a group that valued hard work, dedication, and the strength to rise above challenges. That was a victory he could truly be proud of.